let's do this then. Call to order the Village of Ashcroft Council meeting for Monday, August 26, 2024. Mayor and Council wish to acknowledge that the meeting today is held within the traditional territory of the Inklikautin people. Are there any additions to or deletions from the agenda?
No.
Thank you. We have the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held on Monday, July 22nd. Councillor Clement?
I'll move that the minutes of the regular meetings of Council held Monday, July 22nd, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconder?
I beat her.
Councillor Lambert, thank you. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
No one opposed, that is carried. We have the minutes of the special meeting of Council held on Wednesday, August the 7th. Councillor Anstead?
Make a motion, where are we here? Sorry, make a motion for the minutes of the special meeting of council on Wednesday, August 7th. Be adopted as presented.
Thank you kindly. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Davenport, thank you. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
None opposed, that is carried. We move on to item 3.1, delegations. We have Marco Giusti here. Sir, the podium is yours. Thank you, Leaf.
All I ask today is you give me the time and courtesy of getting through my statement, and there will be time for questions or concerns to be shared at the end. The speech will be just over 10 minutes. Today I'm here to speak on behalf of people from Ashcroft, Cache Creek, Ashcroft First Nations, Bonaparte First Nations, and all of the surrounding communities that do not have access to or follow social media or news pages for fire-related updates. There are many barriers that may prevent our community members from attending these meetings, including but not limited to wildfire smoke, mobility issues, access to transportation, or means to attend. I am here to speak to the importance of wildfire mitigation to Ashcroft infrastructure and investing in our community. I began investing 30 years ago and was fortunate to be guided by a close few who shared knowledge and experience helped get me to where I am today and still take advice from. I have 2 points I'd like to make. 1, Ashcroft infrastructure, which includes the hospital, arena, hydro, RCMP station, school, Thompson View Manor, and many more assets around the community. What has been done for fire prevention in our community since the 2017 Elephant Hill fire? For example, take a look behind the village office and the arena. The surrounding riverbanks that border this town, take a picture. It's a fire hazard. What do you think it would cost to clean our town of this dead fire-propelling fuel? I can tell you it is much less than replacing the infrastructure lost to fire with our taxpayer dollars. As we look around Ashcroft, take the Mesa, for example. Your houses border Crown land and village property. There is sagebrush and dead grass, completely lacking fire guards and maintenance. Just below the Mesa is the main highway, where a few years back, a transport truck brakes caught fire. Any fire along that highway would easily ignite the dead grass and sagebrush on the hillside and race upwards towards all the houses. You may remember when an arsonist left something burning at the turnoff to the Mesa, or when a fire started just off the train tracks and climbed towards the Mesa. All of these scenarios could have been much worse. These hillsides have been neglected for years and simply require a brush saw and chainsaw to maintain. We need to do better for fire prevention and maintenance to protect our residents and assets, as well as protect our volunteer fire department staff who devote their own time and lives to protect our assets and the safety of our community. If we lose our hospital to fire, we can guarantee Interior Health will not be building a new one. We will lose all of these services and jobs to Kamloops, not to mention the potential loss of life to the vulnerable population that live in the area who may not be able to get out in time. Some of you may remember losing our courthouse to fire. It was not rebuilt here. When and have you applied for the necessary applications for a Crown land tenure and riparian area use for fire prevention and mitigation? 2, social media and investing. I think we can all agree that social media is a powerful tool. It can cause panic and propagate false information. People join these pages to learn about communities and services offered there. This is a place for people to post factual information and share ideas. The web page administrator should monitor these pages to ensure the information posted is legitimate and ensure rules are being followed. I myself have been a member of the Ashcroft Main Community Facebook page with over 8,000 members for 4 years. The reason I call it the main page is because there are 2 other Ashcroft community pages. I have recently been banned from the main Ashcroft community page for simply bringing awareness to a fire hazard in front of our hospital, one of our most valuable assets. When there's a fire exploding from mountaintop to mountaintop, heading in our direction, this particular property has been neglected since the 2017 Hill fire on both sides of the highway for 7 years. Over the years that I've been a member of the main Ashcroft community page, I have witnessed people disparage and make false statements about our hospital, restaurants, grocery store, and other community assets. These comments seem to go unnoticed and are not held accountable by the web page administrator, leading to the propagation of false information and damage our community's reputation. People who fight for these assets or have differing opinions from the web administrator have been banned from the main page, thus leading to the creation of 2 others. I am not here to speak today because I have been banned, nor do I care to ever go back. It is not worth my time or efforts to have someone censor me, especially when I am fighting for our hospital and care facility that is in harm's way. Think about that. The appropriate response to my comment about the fire hazard should have been, "Thank you, I will share this suggestion with the correct authorities." If no action was taken at the Ashcroft Hospital that day, and it did burn down with loss of life, the pictures and the comments made on social media may be submitted as evidence of neglect in a court of law. Posts and conversations may be deleted, but I have saved these with a screenshot for my own records. I would like to suggest that factual and up-to-date information be shared to the other 2 Ashcroft community pages by our mayor to ensure everyone is getting correct information. We live in a time where the internet and social media is where people go to get information. Maybe a family is looking to relocate to our town and wants to speak with other young or old community members about their experiences here. I am a member of many community Facebook pages. I have seen other mayors interact with their community on all sorts of issues regarding the benefit of their communities. This is something that I've learned in the 30 years I've been investing. You invest in communities that have a hospital, a school, and an RC&P station. These are the building blocks of investing in a community. For example, people who call our hospital dysfunctional are not being held accountable. A simple answer to a comment like that would be, please talk to the healthcare professionals regarding your concerns. This is the image that the web administrator is letting be portrayed of our community to potential investors who may be looking to bring their family or business to our community. Everyone who owns property here and in the surrounding area is an investor. I've been fireproofing my own 9 properties for the last 20 years, clearing cedar, fir, pine, alder bushes, cutting sagebrush and dead grass on Crown land, clearing riverbanks for fire prevention, and doing my part in keeping the volunteer fire departments at home safe and out of harm's way. I am very confident in my knowledge of investing and currently working on a Crown land tenure. So in closing, I encourage everyone here today, when you leave, take a look behind the village office and arena property lines. I like to say that lived experience is better than social media or mainstream media. I would absolutely rather listen to eyewitness accounts and stories any day. Freedom of speech is beautiful until you are censored for something someone didn't like. I have lived in this town longer than many, and my parents have been here longer than most. Some may call it climate change, and some may call it mismanagement. Unfortunately, I stand here today to bring attention to all of the inaction over the past 7 years after the Elephant Hill fire. I care about the image of this town portrayed on social media and want access to factual information shared on all Ashcroft Facebook community pages. I'd like to hear how you plan to mitigate these fire hazards I have brought to your attention today. Is there government funding for climate change that can be utilized to create fire guards and maintain them? Thank you for your time and everything you do for this community.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for your fire smarting efforts, and you raised some very good points. Lot to go at here. Social media, we have control over the Village of Ashcroft Facebook page. That is the only one we can control. We cannot go to any other Facebook pages and say, hey, we don't like what people are posting.
You can't post factual information like you do with the fires.
The Village of Ashcroft shares posts to the Ashcroft BC Facebook page, so anything that comes from the Village of Ashcroft gets shared there, so you can be sure that that's factual. Anyone who, for whatever reason, does not have access to the Ashcroft BC Facebook page can check the Village of Ashcroft page. I also have a Barbara Roden Mayor Facebook page where I post all the information, like all the fire updates I was doing. They're all on that page as well. We have just been approved. We only found out last week that we've been approved for $169,000 in funding for fire smarting. We will be hiring a consultant. I'm sure CAO Dick has made notes of all the points you raised, and those are things that we will be discussing with our Fire Smart coordinator. There are fire guides around the Mesa. They are maintained, so we have two, one along behind Vista Heights Drive and one that goes down from the green field down to the gate where our property starts and behind the houses there on Mesa Vista Drive. As far as Hydro, the hospital, RCMP school, we try to communicate with the owners of those properties because we don't manage them. We do try to communicate with them. Interior Health, for example, the hospital, I know that that is a sore point. And I think that what we are going to try to do is just ensure that Interior Health, for example, has a more robust and regular policy of keeping the grass there trimmed. They certainly are aware of concerns because we have raised them before as a village, that we know that they do need to maintain it. Riverbanks, again, I'm sure that's something the Fire Smart coordinator will be looking into as far as what control do we have, bearing in mind that they are riparian areas and very strict controls from the Department of Fishery and Oceans. Crown land, same thing. We have limited ability to go onto Crown land and do any mitigation. And as far as getting tenure of Crown land, we have been informed by the province that we can only apply to get land out of the Crown and into the control of the Village of Ashcroft once we have exhausted the land that we already have. So, for example, we own a fair bit of land up on the Mesa behind the church, for example. That is Village of Ashcroft property. If we wanted to develop houses on the Mesa, the province would tell us you need to develop houses there first before you even consider trying to ask for more land to come out of the Crown.
For fire mitigation.
For fire mitigation, well, we've gone up, I'm not entirely sure, Director Bennett, with where the fire guard is behind or parallel to Vista Heights Drive. Is that our land or is that Crown land?
Your worship, most of that is on village land. It comes up directly behind the houses and basically onto village property and easements.
As far as going on to Crown land and doing work, I don't know. CAO Dick, Director Benowith, do you know? Do we have any power to go onto Crown land and do any fire mitigation?
Not with the permission from the Crown.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. I don't know how this works. I was just wondering, are you speaking the fire guards are like the little roads up there? Those little like plowed roads on the Mesa? Is that what you're talking? That is a fire guard per se?
Yes.
And is that a government standard fire guard, or is that just what we created?
It was created by the fire department.
It was put in, your worship, by the village.
Or the village,
and everything else, and by a proper fire guard, it is, yeah, it would be classified as more than wide enough to, because it's double the blade of a 14, so it's almost 30 feet wide. So, yes, it would be.
CFO Bella and then CAO Dick.
Your worship, we did do an application and did a fire study with the fire department and a couple of engineers, and a whole set of recommendations came out of it, and it would cost us over $1 million, 1.2, to get additional water, additional hydrants, additional equipment, and we applied for that. the province hasn't approved that, so we'll keep trying. So it's on something we've gone through, and this is apart from fire smarting. We're trying to build up our capacity to deal with things. So things like sprinklers, they've got certain sprinklers which can sprinkle a vast area. So in regards to those fire guards, ideal situation would be once, if the fire is coming that way, we get mobile sprinklers which wet the whole area and cover, that's what proofs the fire guard. So things like that, we want to do those, but there's a limitation on how much the village has resources. So we've been applying for that.
And the funding we have for Fire Smart for this year is a start. We're anticipating that as the program continues and grows, we will be able to move from the planning to the actual active stage, but we do have something planned for this fall where the village, if you've seen the agenda for tonight, the village is asking, Public Works is asking for approval to go into village-owned land and clean up some of the fire hazards that are there. So it's a start.
Thank you.
And CEO did.
I was basically going to say same thing CFO Bala said, that we had developed a plan that creates that humidity barrier to protect us up on the mesa, but we're not approved for funding, but that doesn't stop us, we'll keep trying.
Any, Councillor Davenport, Anstead, do you have any comments? You switched positions there behind my back.
No, that was great. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, sure.
So when it comes to cleaning up the bank within the riparian legislation limits and the top of the backside of this building, will that be the onus of the village eventually? I understand you're working with Fire Smart, but when Fire Smart says there's an issue with it running up there, whose responsibility will it be to mitigate that fire risk?
I imagine that anything we do would have to be done in partnership or conjunction with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, because they would have to tell us what we can and cannot do in terms of disturbing items on the bank, with particular attention to making sure that items do not go into the river.
So if that property is privately owned?
Privately owned property, you're still under the control of the DFO.
So if we were mandated to Fire Smart private property down to the edge of the river, it would be, and I'm speaking almost entirely of Marco's parents' property, if they were mandated all of a sudden to have to clean down to the edge of the river, would that be the responsibility and financial responsibility of the village based on fire smarting, or would that be the responsibility of the homeowner?
Well, first of all, I can't see that anyone could mandate someone to fire smart their property.
Oh.
That would not be within our remit.
That's so personally.
We can ask people to fire smart their properties. We can ask them to be cognizant of the dangers.
Okay.
We can ask them to see what they can do on their property to mitigate. We cannot mandate anyone, like we cannot, for example, mandate anyone to dig out their cedar hedges. We can suggest, we are hoping that within the parameters of the Fire Smart program and the funding, that we will be able to help people possibly funding wise to do some of this more costly mitigation, like ripping out cedar hedges. But as far as mandating, no. And if you owned a property on the river and you wanted to mitigate off your own accord, you were looking at the river bank and you wanted to do something, then you would have to talk to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you.
Your Worship, just my understanding of fisheries is they don't want any disturbance, and even deadfall, they consider it habitat for salmon and of different fish, and it interferes with the water's ecosystem. So who has authority, their senior level of government, they have a higher authority than we do in terms of.
As a for example, when the sidewalk on the bridge is cleared of snow, the snow cannot just, as you know, cannot just be pushed into the river. It has to be collected and taken away.
I think historically we've seen in this town that isn't the issue is deadfall so much. There's not a lot of growth in a lot of those areas, but there is a lot of people tidying up their areas and throwing it down on the riverbanks that can be mitigated by the village, that can be, you can go along door to door and issue fines to people who are littering essentially down the riverbanks. And I think that is a big part of it, is that many people are cutting their dead tree tops off and throwing them down the riverbank that are then sitting there and rotting and creating more burn power along the riverbanks.
That is definitely an issue throughout the village, in river and non-river. And that is actually part of what we will be doing, in addition to Public Works having identified some places, non-riverbank places, where people have been pushing their yard waste and rubbish down. When I say rubbish, I mean like tree branches and things, pushing them down banks behind their houses rather than removing them. We are going to also, hand in hand with that, be starting an education campaign for all residents, explaining how and how not to dispose of tree branches, yard waste, grass clippings, leaves, etc. And that will include, don't dump them down the riverbank.
In addition to that, can we have the DFO come and actually create maybe like a project with local community children, how we can clean up our riverbanks, how we can maintain our riverbanks, and provide like a healthy habitat for fish and wildlife, while also maintaining fire prevention and mitigation, because I think that goes hand in hand. DFO doesn't want the riverbanks overburdened with yard waste, and I understand that like deadfall is natural and it happens in the habitat. However, yard waste that's pushed down, or leaves that are blown down from yards, is very different from deadfall. And in saying that, we could work together as a community with DFO and create a project for children or people in the community who want to get involved for cleaning up your riverbanks in a healthy way, that we can help establish healthy riverbanks, fire mitigation, and also maintain our healthy river and banks.
No, that is an awesome suggestion. I've learned that if you can get to the children and educate them, they will shame mom and dad into not doing these things, or doing these things, as the case may be. We actually are hoping to meet with School District 74, with the trustees, the Board of Trustees, and with senior staff. And I've made the note of this to talk to the school district about perhaps doing something with the schools where they can maybe invite, because I know they do have various programs like releasing salmon, for example. I know is always a popular one. That might be something that the school can do, is try to bring in that education component about keeping our riverbanks healthy. Thank you.
Your worship, if I may interrupt, Councillor Kumar, you had a
Oh no, I was just asking you to mute Nadine.
mute.
No offense.
No, this was just some feedback.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, we move on to public input. Is there more public input? Well, we've kind of started public input, so that's what I'm going to say anyway. We've started public input. So does anyone have any other input from the public?
Previous notes,
Previous.
your worship.
As already noted. All right, thank you. Is there anything online, Lee? No? All right, we move on to item 5.1, zoning amendment bylaw number 870/2024. And we do have.
Yeah. So I did receive, pardon me, one email from a property owner across the street that did submit a letter to us earlier in the spring or summer, and just raising concerns about drainage and runoff from the hospital, the IHA property that runs across, and sometimes causes washouts or other issues in their erosion on their property. So they were hoping that would be included as part of the process, and that information has been forwarded to the developers and the building inspector.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a recommendation, and this has to be done in 3 separate parts.
Yes, please.
Councillor Fleming.
I'll move that council gives first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 870/2024, which amends zoning bylaw number 823/2028 to add unassisted seniors housing as a permitted use in the P1 Park and Public Use 1 zone enabling the development of a 29-unit senior residential complex at 710 Elm Street.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Councilor Lambert, any discussion on this? No? All right, on the question, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
None opposed, that is carried. I will move that council give second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 870-2024, which amends zoning bylaw number 823-2018 to add unassisted seniors housing as a permitted use in the P1 Park and Public Use 1 zone, enabling development of a 29-unit senior residential complex at 710 Elm Street.
Second.
All right. Councilor Davenport, all right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried.
My turn?
Your turn to shine.
All right, where am I? Third reading. To amend a bylaw to amend permitted uses in the public and parks zone. Purpose to present the proposed zoning amendment bylaw number 870-2024 for the first, second, and third reading.
Nope, we're just doing third reading now.
Sorry.
Just about
Third,
purpose.
which seeks to amend the zoning bylaw number 823-2018. The amendment would permit the addition of unassisted senior housing as permitted use in Park and Public Use 1 zone, specifically for the development of a 29-unit senior residential complex at 710 Elm Street.
Second.
Second, Councilor Anstett, and this is third reading of the zoning amendment bylaw. Any questions or comments?
It'll be nice to see it get underway.
Yes. All those in favor? In favor?
Yes.
Yay.
None opposed, that is carried. Item 6.1, Department of Public Works report, utilization of free dump day. We do have a recommendation. Councilor Clement? Oh, Councilor Anstett.
Thank you. The purpose of this report, motion, that council approves staff request to have the Public Works Department schedule a cleanup day to remove illegally dumped yard waste on public property, secure the free dump day for this purpose, and develop public educational materials to be distributed to residents about the risks and consequences of illegal dumping of yard waste.
Okay, thank you. Second, Councilor Davenport, discussion. Councilor Lambert.
I have a few questions. Will this be an annual thing? Like, can this happen every year?
We are allowed to have one free dump event every year.
Per year. So could we use it to tie in with our spring cleanup to get all the yard waste instead of paying for it like we normally have to do? Can we do that?
Director Manoah?
Council, your worship, what this has come from, because we had our spring cleanup and we weren't included in that free use time, they've offered one this year. So this is taking advantage of that one-time free use. From here, we're still looking at just doing our annual spring cleanup, and that would be our annual free use.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank
you.
you.
This is just making use of, the TNRD came to us and said, you have not made use of it, so we're offering it to you for this 2024 season.
Perfect, thank you. That answers my questions.
There you go. Any other questions or comments? All right. Councilor Davenport?
Yes, thank you. So this means that there is a spring and we're using the free one for a different part of the year? Is that what we're trying to do?
It means because they offered us one free event for 2024 and we had already had our community cleanup in the spring, we're taking advantage of this and we are using it for Public Works to go in and do some of the cleanup on some of the banks that people have been dropping their yard waste down.
Right. So that perhaps is a better use of the free one around this time frame. That's my sort of opinion.
That's going to have to be a discussion. I mean, we get one free. We've already had one that we paid for this year, so this is kind of a bonus. This is a second bite at the cherry. Going forward, we'll have to have this discussion when we go to talk about the spring cleanup day next year, whether we want to utilize our free day for the community spring cleanup. That will be a discussion to have at that time.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, on the question, all those in favor?
Yes.
No one opposed, that's carried. Item 6.2, adoption of Trails Master Plan. I would like to move that council adopt the Village of Ashcroft Trails Master Plan as presented. Councillor Clement seconds that. All right, discussion on the Trails Master Plan. Councillor Clement.
Just reading through it again, I just noticed that since it was originally presented to us and now Bonaparte First Nation has changed their name from Bonaparte Indian Band to Bonaparte First Nation, and I was wondering if we want to reflect that in it because we haven't adopted it yet.
All right, so we'll just make that one minor error.
Yeah,
I don't think that needs a change to the motion.
No.
So Bonaparte First Nation. Regarding our frustration at the lack of answer to our question about liability on trails, as I've mentioned, the TNRD is undertaking a trails network or strategy review. I'm not part of that working group, but they have just started that. They're about to have their first meeting, and that is one of the questions that I know will be asked is, because so many of these trails do exist on Crown or public land, how far can we go? How safe are we in promoting them through the village? So we might, with the collective weight of the TNRD, be able to get an answer to that question. Yeah. And I did forward the working group our Trails Master Plan, the draft version, just so that they could see what we have in Ashcroft and what we've done. So they were asking for all the municipalities to send in anything they have.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. CFO Ballin?
Your Worship, one of the amendments was talk about the skill park for kids on their bicycles, and I think we have set aside funding, but we're waiting for the group. But we were chatting about it, and I think at some point we should look at other communities, what they've done, and maybe get some help from them and get a skills park in place. We have the land, we have a desire, we have a community group, and I think if we can proceed, maybe not, every year is a busy year in terms of infrastructure, but that is something maybe which we can incorporate into a budgeting process and go from there. I don't know what Director Benoit thinks about that idea.
He'll be the first one out there trying it. No? Okay. Well, Clinton, they just started a skills park or a pump track? Pump track at the park. What's that park called out there? Elliott Park. Kamloops, I know, has recently opened one. Of course, theirs is probably going to be quite large, but I know there's one at Whistler that's fairly recent as well. So a lot of communities that we would be able to take a look at and see what they've done.
I have a question.
Councillor Davenport?
Just wondering how recent have we communicated with that group that we were wanting to partner with it on this?
On the skills track?
Public meeting.
Yeah.
After that too. Your Worship, we met at the public. It was raised at the public meeting, and then I had a meeting separately, and we talked about it. And I said the funding's available, but people are busy with their lives. So at some point, we need to start looking at what we're doing as part of implementing that, and looking at trails around town, especially that seniors trail as well, or flat trails.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comment on the Trails Master Plan? All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
No one opposed, that is carried. Information, we have UBCM Fire Smart funding approval. Hey, CO Dick, anything to add to this?
No, I'm working on the posting for the contract position, so hopefully that will go out soon, and I'll be reaching out to the consultant about getting started on our community wildfire protection plan, which is going to be the biggest portion of our funding for this year. Well, it's not the biggest portion. So in order for us to move forward with any actual mitigation efforts, we have to have a community wildfire protection plan in place before we can do any work. So this year, we're really only allowed to do public engagement, public education, training, development of our community wildfire protection plan, and look at mitigating on village-owned property fire mitigation. After we've completed our community wildfire protection plan and we have all of those education bits in place and completed, then we're able to reapply once we've completed our reporting, reapply for the following year because it's an ongoing cycle, and we'll be able to start mitigating efforts and have our community our wildfire protection coordinator assist private property residents with their assessments on their properties.
Any other questions, CFO Bella?
Your worship, just to add to the discussion, that's the wildfire side of things, which we are being mandated. On the other side, on the risk mitigation with the LG cap, we're being mandated flood risk assessments and fire risk assessments. And I actually met with the engineers today to talk about the flood risk hazard mapping and assessment. And we're hoping that at some point we can squeeze that part, the fire risk assessment, into the first money or something else, because these are requirements which are getting mandated by the province, right? So thinking of that as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the fire smarting?
No.
All right, so that was for information. The next is for information. BC Hydro Level 3 EV charging station, slight change to location. Any comments or questions on this? Councillor Lyman.
I am directionally challenged, and I admit it. It's right or left. There's no east-south movement. So where exactly will this be going now? Is it farther towards the graveyard?
Yes.
Yeah. And what is the reason for that?
Okay. So we're in the original location. Directly across the street is the Ashcroft Apartment Motel.
Yes.
And along there are several power poles, but the one that had all the mechanisms on the top that BC Hydro needed to tie onto was on private property. And they weren't given permission to work on that power pole on private property because it's privately owned. So it became a yes, we'll sign the agreement. No, and this long drawn out thing, finally they said no, they weren't going to sign the agreement. So BC Hydro said, well, let's just move it down by however many feet.
Right.
Basically, we've moved it down about the width of 8th Avenue, and now it'll be right on the edge of there. And there's power poles that are BC Hydro owned on the boulevard there that they can tap into.
Perfect. Thank you.
There is a manhole cover there that we had concerns about, or Director Bennyworth had concerns about, but they will not be impacting that. It will be perfectly accessible to us and it won't impede.
Good. Thank you.
Your worship, I brought up the map.
Oh, thank you.
So it's moving to this point, correct?
That's
Yes.
Thank you.
Gosh, that's an old map.
Yes, it still had the dump.
It still had the recycling. Yes. All right. Any other questions or comments on the EV charging station? Okay. And we have the bylaw officer's second quarter update. Do we have any questions on this? Is that the wind?
Yes.
Okay.
Or trains.
Wind.
Okay.
All right.
They're noisy too.
So any questions or comments on the bylaw officer's report? No? No. All right. We move on to a raft of action correspondence. We have 7.1, Forestry Works for BC seeking council support for sustainable annual allowable cut from the province. And I looked at their sample message, and I would like to move that we send a letter of support. Or we support the Forestry Works for BC request and forward a letter of support. And there is a sample, if we click on the link, there is a sample letter there. All right, Councillor Clement, thank you. And it just talks to the province about a sustainable forest sector, must have reliable and timely access to the annual allowable cut. And we're calling on the province to demonstrate your support for this future of forestry in BC. Any discussion? On the question, all those in favor?
Yay.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Carried. We have 7.2, C2C, Community to Community First Nation Leadership Council and UBCM membership. I'd like to move that we receive for information as there may be a scheduling conflict with minister meetings at UBCM, and there's also a conflict with the small talk forum at which the Village of Ashcroft has been asked to present. Seconder? Councilor Clement, thank you. Yes, I received a request for from UBCM for the Village of Ashcroft to join with Lower Nicolai, I believe, to spend 20 minutes at the Small Talk Forum discussing our Experience Ashcroft Pocket Guide as one of the, I'm assuming, success stories. So
Good.
10 minutes or so for a presentation and then a few minutes for questions, and CAO Dick has kindly volunteered to put together a short PowerPoint, and then we're going to go over some notes and do a tag team thing about our awesome award-winning pocket guide.
And we should make sure we bring a bunch to
Oh, yes.
hand out.
Yes. So we are receiving that for information, so no vote required. Graffiti Days, we have a donation request, and that is coming up very, very quickly. And I'd like to move that we assemble a gift not to exceed $100 in value as a gift for Graffiti Days, a gift of swag.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Lambert. We have a fair bit of swag.
Do we have new snakes?
Not yet. This is the collector's item swag.
That's right. Get it now while it's hot, 50% off.
No, get it out. Just my personal opinion. We don't want everybody to get upset.
So did that get seconded? I'm sorry.
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
Councilor. So that is to give some swag to Graffiti Days to give away. Keep it in the original packaging. It's going to be even more valuable. I've watched Antiques Roadshow.
There is
I
no
know.
original packaging.
I know how it works.
Oh, dear.
All right. Any further discussion on this item? All right. On the question, all those in favor?
Yay.
All right. Anyone opposed? Carried. Suicide prevention support for youth in BC. Asking for a letter in support of a request advocating for better suicide prevention supports in the public school system. Councillor Edston?
I'd like to make a motion that council for the Village of Ashcroft provide a letter of support of Ms. Donovan's request advocating for better suicide prevention supports in the public school system to the Minister of Education, the Honorable Rachna Singh.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Councillor Lambert, thank you. Any discussion on this?
It's a sad story.
All right, on the question, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
None opposed, that is carried. Item 7.5, UBCM seeks member feedback on protocol with First Nation Leadership Council. We are asked.
I'd like to motion,
Councillor Davenport, yes? So you'd like to,
to make the motion that council for the Village of Ashcroft supports the UBCM and FN Leadership Council's work on the development of a relationship protocol initiative.
thank you very much. Second,
I'll second.
Councillor Lambert, any discussion on this item? All right, on the question, all those in favor?
Yay.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Carried. And item 7.6, Desert Mesa Club Poker Run. Request village participation. That is the Sunday the 15th. That is the day that I suspect some people will be traveling down to UBCM, but you and I will.
Oh, right.
Yes, and in that morning, I will be doing
It's
the
a
Terry
Terry
Fox
Fox
run.
run, yes.
Busy day.
So I'd like to move that the Village of Ashcroft does not participate in the poker run, but donates swag items for prizes not to exceed $100 in value.
Second.
Councilor Everett, thank you. CFO Dick? Did you?
We have a staff member that would like to participate.
Oh, we do?
That
Okay.
was my question. That was going to be my
Oh, okay.
question.
Sorry.
All right. And we haven't actually, okay, we do have a motion on the floor. All right, so would we like to amend that we host a poker run stop in Ashcroft? And that swag items not exceed to exceed $100? Okay. So we're going to vote to defeat this basically. I shouldn't be saying this. You all have free will. But anyway, just reminding everyone of that. All right, we do have a motion. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed to the motion?
Nay.
All right. The motion is defeated. Would someone like to make an alternative motion?
I will move that the Village of Ashcroft host a poker run stop with staff in Ashcroft on September 15th from 10 to 1:30, and that swag items not to exceed $100 in value be donated as prizes, and further that an overtime shift be posted for a staff member to host the stop.
Okay, thank you. Second by Councillor Anstead. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That is carried. We have concerned citizens of Surrey and BC. I would like to receive this information. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor of receiving this information?
Yes.
No one opposed? That's carried. All right, and then we have another swath of information correspondence. And I would like to break one of these out from information hell, and, for lack of a better term. And I would like, and it is item 7.12, introduction of the new medical health officer for Ashcroft. I would like to move that we send a letter of welcome and introduction to him and invite him to a meeting with council.
Oh, perfect. I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? That's carried. Anyone else have any information correspondence that caught their eye that they'd like to do something with? I will just point out the TNRL writer in residence who will be coming to Ashcroft in September. And lots of opportunities to meet with her. She sounds like a very interesting person. Gail Anderson-Dargatz. She's a shoe-swap-based writer. And she will be doing readings and workshops and all sorts of stuff around the TNRD. All right, we have reports and recommendations. We have no recommendations, I don't think. We just have reports from the various committees of the whole and commissions. So these are the working group notes. Glad to see all these underway. Thank you to staff for all their work rounding up all us cats and keeping us busy and providing such comprehensive notes.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions on any of these? No?
It's great to see that our strategic plan is moving forward and we're starting to talk
Yeah.
about things and create some projects.
All right. Anyone have anything they would like to report? Well, I had my surprise about being asked to talk at UBCM, but I kind of blew that one, so. But no, it's very exciting. I think this is the third time the Village of Ashcroft has been asked to talk about a success story at the Small Talk Forum, so that's very nice. Anyone else have any?
No, it's been a quiet summer for meetings that I've been going to.
All right, I would like to move, the council moves to a closed meeting to discuss an item under the Community Charter Section 90.1G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. Second by Councillor Clement, thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. We will move into a closed session.